One pregnant woman, one corrupt cop, one moment that changes everything. This emotionally gripping drama dives into hidden abuse, moral conflict, and the quiet courage that rewrites an entire town's silence. If you're into real characters, hard choices, and justice that hits where it hurts, you don't want to miss this. Inspired by real emotions and real consequences. Hey, my story family. Welcome back, and thank you so much for tuning in. I truly appreciate your time and support. Every view, every comment, every share keeps this channel alive. Kindly like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. You're part of this journey, and I'm so glad you're here. Now let's begin. It was just past 2 in the afternoon in Oak Ridge County. The sun sat heavy above the quiet streets, pressing heat down on every surface. Most stayed indoors with their fans on high, but Cynthia Davidson had a mission. Her belly swayed side to side as she walked. 9 months in, any step felt like 2. Still, she needed dates and citrus, ingredients for her herbal drink, the one her grandmother swore helped bring labor faster and soften the days before delivery. She gripped the strap of her cloth tote bag, breath slow and shallow. Her dress clung to her back. A drop of sweat traced down her spine. She passed the bakery, nodded politely at a man walking his dog, then turned onto Main Street, past the flower shop where roses bloomed like soft fists along the sidewalk. Mrs. Mag, pruning quietly under her big sun hat, looked up and smiled. Cynthia managed a soft wave. She was just 3 stores away from the fruit stand when the voice came behind her. Loud, sharp, too familiar. "Move it, lazy elephant." She stopped. Not immediately. It took a moment for her to register it was him again. Officer Maxwell Matthews stood with one hand on his belt, sunglasses pushed up, his face too smug for the badge on his chest. Cynthia turned slowly. Her eyes met his, calm but tired. "I'm pregnant," she said, breath catching. "Not broken. Show some manners." Maxwell's grin faded like dust off glass. He took 1 step toward her. "Watch that tone." She held her ground. The muscles in her back twitched. Her ankles ached. Maxwell's leg moved fast. 1 quick, shallow kick to her shin. Not hard enough to bruise, but enough to knock her off her center. She stumbled back. Her foot caught the edge of a loose brick. She fell sideways, crashing into Mrs. Mag's pots by the flower shop. The ceramic snapped under her, red petals scattering like confetti. "Ah!" she cried, arms instinctively wrapping her stomach. Fruit rolled from her bag, dates, oranges, lemons, bouncing across the pavement. Her hands trembled as she pulled herself upright, leaning on one elbow, other hand tight across her belly. A sharper pain gripped her now, low and quick, and her face went pale. Across the street, behind tinted windows of a parked cruiser, Officer Rick Davidson sat frozen. His hand was on the wheel. He had seen every second. The insult, the kick, the fall. He didn't move. His mouth parted slightly, but no words came. His chest tightened. Maxwell glanced briefly in the direction of the cruiser. He didn't see Rick through the glare. He straightened his badge, turned, and walked away like nothing happened. Cynthia stayed down for a moment longer, one knee tucked, hand gripping her side. Mrs. Mag rushed over, wide-eyed, stepping around broken flower pots. She bent slowly, gently helping Cynthia back up. "I'm okay," Cynthia said through her teeth. I lost my footing." Mrs. Mag touched her arm. "You didn't fall. You were pushed." Cynthia didn't reply. Just down the block, a high schooler with a red backpack had paused. His phone was already in his hand. He had caught most of it. The words, the stumble, the crash. He didn't say a thing. He just kept walking. As Mrs. Mag knelt again to collect the spilled fruit, her voice trembled. "Oh Lord," she whispered, not looking up. "Not again." Cynthia's breathing turned ragged in the backseat. One hand clutched her belly. The other gripped Rick's arm with more strength than he'd ever felt from her. "She's coming," she said through clenched teeth. "Something's wrong." Rick didn't speak. He just pressed the gas harder. By the time they reached Oak Ridge General, a nurse with a wheelchair was already at the entrance. Cynthia's face was pale, her lip bleeding where she'd bitten down. She was taken in without question. The bruises on her arm were fresh. The doctor took one look and called for the OB team. Inside the delivery room, monitors beeped too fast. Cynthia's blood pressure spiked. The doctor's voice was calm, but her eyes weren't. "She's in stress labor. We need to do a C-section. Her body's shutting down from adrenaline. She can't push." Rick stood by the glass, arms folded, jaw clenched until his teeth hurt. He could still see her fall. The way she curled around her stomach. The way she didn't cry for help, just looked for him. Now she was behind surgical curtains, alone under white lights. Rick sat down in the waiting chair, elbows on knees, face in his hands. Back at the precinct the next day, Maxwell walked in like he owned the place. Bright uniform, coffee in hand. He leaned against the chief's desk and shrugged. "She tripped," he said smoothly. "These women think they're fragile. You sneeze near them, they fall over." The chief didn't blink. Witnesses. An old lady with flowers. Maybe a kid walking by. Nothing solid. Rick stood by the door, saying nothing. That evening, Cynthia was in recovery, a tiny baby girl resting beside her. She was quiet, her fingers gently stroking the baby's soft cheek. Rick sat next to her, watching. He'd seen his wife cry before, but this silence wasn't grief. It was something colder. "I didn't fall," she said without turning her head. "He kicked me." "I know," Rick said. "Then what are you going to do?" He looked down. There's no proof strong enough. No camera. No mic. Cynthia finally looked at him. Her voice came out soft but clear. "Don't fight for me, Rick. Fight so no other woman walks these streets in fear." That night, Rick watched the video. The one the student had sent anonymously. He'd seen it 5 times already. It showed her falling. The yell. The moment right after, but not the kick. Not enough. The rage boiled up slowly, quiet like smoke. Rick waited until the precinct was nearly empty. He took his badge off, walked to the records room, where he'd worked for years. He unlocked the far cabinet, pulled open the file marked Matthews, Maxwell. Officer ID, 2048. Inside, spotless test records, pristine academy evaluations, glowing peer reviews, all lies. Rick knew better. He remembered rumors, the hushed talk about Maxwell's cheating scandal that somehow disappeared before graduation. He dug deeper into the archives, found the hidden drawer, the one only the oldest officers used. There it was, an old surveillance still from the academy classroom. Maxwell looking at another cadet's test paper. A perfect shot. Rick copied the files, slipped everything into a plain brown envelope. He wrote one line on a folded piece of paper and slipped it inside. 24 hours, or your past goes up in smoke. At dawn, Maxwell opened his front door in boxers and a loose tank top. He looked down. A sealed envelope lay on the doormat. Inside, the photo of him cheating, half creased from being folded fast, and scrawled across the bottom in red marker. "Who's watching now?" Maxwell didn't sleep that night. He stared at the ceiling. The edges of the photo still burned into his mind. By morning, the student's video had already made it to 3 neighborhood mom forums. The caption under one post read, "Oak Ridge PD. Protect and kick." He paced the kitchen in his socks, sipping bitter coffee he didn't remember brewing. His phone buzzed. Another message. Someone cropped a screenshot of him smirking next to Cynthia before the fall. Comments were piling up. People were recognizing his voice. He tried calling Rick twice. Straight to voicemail. He left no message. By 10, he was in a hoodie and jeans, badge tucked in a drawer at home, walking quickly down Main Street. When he pushed open the glass door to the Oak Ridge Gazette, the front desk girl barely looked up. Maxwell moved past the rows of humming computers and sat down at a corner terminal. He didn't need to think. The words came fast, poured out like they'd been waiting years. I made a mistake. I let my pain become a weapon. I disrespected a woman carrying life. And worse, I wore a badge while doing it. There's no excuse. I've hidden behind a uniform, behind protocol, behind silence. But the truth caught up. And the woman I hurt didn't fall. She was pushed. And not just by me, but by everything this department has let slide. He didn't sign it, not with his name. He clicked send and stood up. As he turned to leave, the bell over the Gazette door jingled. Mrs. Mag walked in slowly, holding a small bouquet of wrapped daffodils. She saw him instantly, didn't blink. "You wrote that, didn't you?" she asked. Maxwell stopped moving, looked down at his shoes. "Doesn't matter." "It does," she said. She walked over and placed the flowers on the front counter. "I saw what you did. I also saw what you just wrote." He didn't say anything. "That's a start," she whispered. Then she turned and walked out, leaving the scent of soil and sun behind her. By afternoon, the Gazette ran the piece. Anonymous, bold, and headlined in red. A badge, a mistake, a mother. Rick didn't read it right away. He was holding his daughter in one arm, feeding her formula, while Cynthia dozed beside him. But when his phone buzzed with a link and a dozen forwarded texts, he finally opened it. He read the confession once, then again. His chest stayed still, cold. But he smiled. Once, just slightly. He forwarded it to Internal Affairs with the subject line: Statement of Guilt. Review for disciplinary action. 3 days later, Officer Maxwell Matthews was pulled into a small room. No uniform, no badge on his chest. The chief didn't yell. He just handed him a new ID. Desk clerk, Records Division. No gun, no street patrol, no rank. The public knew. The forums had done their job. But there was no trial, no scandal, just a quiet fall. What Maxwell never knew, what he would never know, was that Rick had already burned the folder. The original credentials, the test scores, the grainy photo of the cheat, gone. He didn't want revenge. He wanted confession. And Maxwell had confessed with no rope around his neck. That mattered more. A month passed. Summer started to fade. The baby had a name now. Grace. She smiled just like Cynthia. One Saturday morning, Rick opened the door to find a white envelope resting on the mat. No return address. Inside was a small note, handwritten. "I deserved worse, but thank you for giving me a chance to feel shame before ruin." And behind it, a photo of Cynthia sitting on the porch, sunlight on her face, baby Grace in her arms, smiling. "You said." Spring came back to Oak Ridge County like it never left. The wind had warmth in it again, and Main Street smelled faintly of soil, sugar, and something blooming. Cynthia walked slowly down the sidewalk, baby Grace on her hip, 2 toddlers in front of her skipping and arguing over a stick they'd found. She wore a soft blue dress, her hair pulled back, sandals quiet against the pavement. She didn't limp anymore, her shoulders no longer hunched with caution. The fruit stand had a fresh table of oranges. The bakery was selling lemon rolls. And outside the flower shop, the roses were wide open again. Red, yellow, pink. Mrs. Mag was trimming dead leaves off a row of pots when she spotted Cynthia. "Morning, girl," she called out, voice low but kind. Cynthia smiled. "Morning, Mrs. Mag." She turned to the boys. "Stay close." They nodded but didn't listen. Still, she didn't chase them. Not today. Across the street, a figure behind the glass of the traffic office looked up. Maxwell. He wore a plain shirt now. No badge. His desk was covered in paperwork, license renewals, parking violations, nothing more. He saw her. He always did. But he never waved, never looked too long. Just enough to recognize the path she walked. Then he went back to his files. Rick had taken on a new job since everything. Head of records and civilian justice officer. His name was on all the reports that used to go unnoticed. Noise complaints from poor homes, shopkeeper harassment, sidewalk citations that seemed targeted. He read them now. He followed up. He called people back. Some folks said it was guilt driving the change. Others said it was pride. But Cynthia knew better. It was both. Today, she stopped by the flower shop. She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a small clay pot. It was hand-painted, simple, with brush strokes still showing. Inside bloomed 3 roses, one red, one yellow, one pink. "I brought something for your window," she said to Mrs. Mag, holding it out with care. The old woman looked at the pot, then up at Cynthia's face. Her eyes softened. "What are they for?" Cynthia glanced down at Grace, who had fallen asleep against her shoulder. Then back at the roses. "For pain," she said, touching the red bloom. "For justice." She brushed the yellow. "And for peace." Her finger paused over the pink one, then pulled away. Mrs. Mag took the pot and held it like it was made of glass. "It's been a long year," she said. Cynthia nodded. "But we're still standing." The boys came running back, shouting about a squirrel. Cynthia turned to gather them. But before she left, she looked across the street again. Maxwell wasn't watching this time. He was writing something, head down, lost in whatever small thing kept his hands busy these days. She didn't need his eyes anymore. The town didn't whisper much. The story had lived loud for a while, then settled into silence like most true things do. People knew. They didn't point, didn't praise. But when Cynthia walked by, they nodded. Some tipped their hats. Not because she was a hero, not even because she was a victim, but because she survived and helped the town shift 1 inch closer to better. Mrs. Mag placed the pot of roses in her front window, right by the cracked brick where Cynthia had once fallen. Sometimes the biggest falls make the loudest changes, and sometimes justice blooms right where someone once bled. If this story moved you or made you think, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment below where you are watching from. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support means everything.